And you're listening to episode 2 of the Press Play podcast. I can't believe we made it to 2 podcasts. I mean, with our attention span and drinking problems.
This is so true.
Yeah. But here we are. You can follow us on Facebook. It's at Podcast Press Play. We are available on Apple podcasts. We're available on Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube. Whichever one of those that you're listening on, hey, congratulations. You stuck with us for an entire week.
That's right. And hopefully we're going to have some more to come. And today, I'm really excited about.
We definitely have a much more stable recording schedule than we did when we did the YouTube series, because when we did YouTube, it was pretty much whenever our schedules aligned because we were all over the place. But this one, we really want to have a new episode out at least every Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm glad that this schedule's not going to require a mathematical algorithm.
Exactly. So today, like we said on the last podcast, we're going to talk about... I love this trilogy. Back to the Future.
Yes.
It has been maybe 3 years since I sat down and watched all 3 of them. I did not go back and watch the films, but I did watch a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, reviews, just really anything to jog my memory. And I know you sent me a pretty fascinating, documentary?
The making of documentary that was released, I think, in the early 2000s. Very, very informative and really gets you into the world and makes you appreciate the filmmaking behind the movies. However, I did watch all 3 of them yesterday.
Okay,
back to back.
Then let's start with you, but let's also start with Back to the Future 1.
Yes. I want to start with 1, and we'll get into the sequels.
No. Okay. You say it like that, as like, Back to the Future Part 2. Back to the Future Part 3.
Yeah.
That's about how I would say them.
That's about it. But the first one, I had so much fun watching this movie again. I hadn't watched it in about, I'd say, a good year or 2.
Right.
And
it's definitely a movie that if I see it on, I'm dropping what I'm doing.
No matter what point of the movie it's at.
I don't care, because I know what's going on. I know what happened before, and I'm just going to, I had to go get groceries. Well, screw groceries. I ain't got time for that.
Yeah. The most encompassing thing I can say about this movie is that it is just, it's so well paced. It's so well made. It's a masterpiece of modern cinema. Oh, yeah. It's
definitely been inducted into like the film society's, we're gonna hold on to this movie forever. We're gonna make sure that it's part of the history of cinema, which it absolutely should be, because like you said, great pacing, because at no point in the film does it drag.
No, not one single point. This movie's pacing and editing are perfect.
Oh, absolutely. And They wanted to, come out. I'm not getting into the sequels, but that's a problem that 2 and 3 have, is that there are points in the movie where they are kind of slow, and I lose interest.
This is very true. And I remember in the documentaries that Zemeckis is on record saying that the script was no fun to write. It was very, very difficult for them to get it together and have it make sense. So I kind of get why the sequels are they're not as solid. Mm-hmm. There's something about this movie that it's a picturesque example of storytelling through picture.
Not to mention
showing without telling. It does such a good job. The first 5 minutes of this movie tell you everything you need to know about what's happening,
and everything about the 2 main characters before any of them even say a word. Yeah. And
the whole opening credit sequence.
It lets you know
of Doc's adventures.
Lets you know about him.
Yep, his adventures are impractical. This guy might be a little crazy. And
it lets you know about Marty. He just wants to. He's a teenager. He just wants to rock and have a good time, skateboard or whatever.
Yeah, it shows you that he knows how to play guitar. It shows you that he knows how to ride a skateboard really well. And those are all of that is so important to his to the action sequences and what happens with his character.
And speaking of Marty, if you've ever seen any of the deleted footage where they filmed half the movie with Eric Stoltz. It is a completely different movie, because he is kind of dry, kind of boring, but when they got Michael J. Fox to step in, he is Marty McFly. Like,
absolutely.
I see him all
That's
over
who
the
they
place.
wanted first. He just couldn't do it because of family ties.
Yeah, but he sells every single line of dialogue, every scene he's in with his facial expressions. Because even in the documentary, they mentioned that he's. What's great about Marty's character is he does nothing but react to the situations that he's in because, he is an 80s kid trapped in the 50s. That's what he's going to do.
And you're seeing everything through his eyes.
Absolutely.
It's perfect visual storytelling.
Yeah, and just his reaction cues to everything that happens are just on point.
Yeah.
And that leads me to the next character, the other main character, Doc Brown, who honestly is my favorite character.
Oh, he's mine too. I love Doc Brown.
Like his expressions as well, just wide-eyed, surprised at almost everything when you see him back in the 50s. Because when you see him in the 80s, he is excited, but he also kind of knows that this is going to work until it does, and then he's really awesome. But when you see him in the 50s, he does not. He doesn't believe Marty. He's like, the stranger's at my door. What the hell is going on? His reaction when he first opens the door, he's got that giant thing on his head. is perfect.
It's the best character intro almost ever on film. Right there, you know exactly what he's about.
Absolutely. Even though we've already seen the character, but he's older. When you see younger Doc Brown, I get this character and I know exactly what he's going to be about.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's amazing. What else?
It's just the script is so tight.
Not to mention, just top-notch acting from everybody else. Especially, I think probably maybe the second or third best acted part is George McFly, because Crispin Glover brought it to this role, and it's just amazing. Like he is George McFly because he's skinny, he's dorky, he's timid. And it's just amazing watching him just have life shit on him throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun, but you feel bad for this guy.
Yeah, and there's also some parts upon a rewatch. All subsequent watches, how you notice things that you've never noticed before, especially watching this again as an adult. Because I watched it most when I was a kid. But watching it again as an adult, the opening sequence where Marty's having dinner with his family, and you see just how sad Lorraine is and how out of touch that George is.
Yeah.
And they mention during the first opening parts of the movie, they mention what Biff does to her twice. When Biff says, "Say hey to your mom for me," and when she's talking about girls don't call boys and girls don't chase after boys and girls certainly never sit in parked cars with boys. That still happened. But George stood by.
I did not think that. That is fascinating because, now that I'm thinking about it now, she's sitting at the dinner table and there's almost like a remorse and a guilt and definitely somebody who's a trauma when she's saying, like, I never sat in a parked car with a boy or whatever. Like, she's just so against dating.
Because of what happened to her.
Yeah, that is fascinating and also a little bit depressing.
It is actually, but it just shows the depth of and just intelligence of all this script writing that Bob Gale and Bob Zemeckis did. And having Spielberg as a consultant actually didn't help. Or didn't hurt, rather.
It did not hurt at all.
Didn't hurt at all.
I don't think this movie would have got made without him.
If you watch all of Zemeckis' other films, this, for the longest time, I didn't really even realize it. I was like a sophomore or whatever in high school, that Spielberg didn't direct these movies.
Yeah, he was just the executive producer.
Yeah. But you can tell how much input that he had and how valued his opinion was because of just the way the movie looks and how the movie feels. The soundtrack, oh my God, the soundtrack in this film.
The soundtrack is amazing. It's actually the same with Indiana Jones because Spielberg didn't direct that either, but he was having, you could tell he had...
No, Spielberg did direct that. It was Lucas that was a consultant.
Okay, I had that completely flipped around because, it definitely shows that he was involved very heavily in this movie, especially with one thing I do love about Spielberg movies, even if he's not directing, is just the fact that he has a vision for it and he's going to let you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's clear from the get-go. The tone is established immediately in this movie, and that's very Spielberg-esque.
Just go back to that first 5 minutes. Very Spielberg.
Oh yeah,
That had his DNA all over it. Gross. But yeah, like you say with the soundtrack, I love like this is I think the only movie, because I can't think of any songs from the other two, is you hear Power of Love, you immediately think Back to the Future. You can't not.
You can't not. No, that is that movie.
Yeah, you could.
That song belongs to that movie and no one else.
Yeah, maybe.
Sorry, Huey Lewis.
Maybe Back in Time, but not as much as Power of Love.
No. Power of Love is the Back to the Future song.
And I know Chuck Berry wrote Johnny Be Good, but I don't care because Marty McFly did it first.
That's right. Marty invented rock and roll.
Which is so ridiculous.
It is.
Another character that a lot of people overlook because it's really not a character, but to be it is, that's the DeLorean.
Oh, it absolutely is a character.
Yeah, because you don't have this movie without a DeLorean. You know what?
It has its own quirks. It has a character. It's not reliable.
It's exactly like how the Millennium Falcon is a character.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not reliable. It is, it's heavily involved in the film. And when, something goes wrong, it's always, at the very end, he can't get it to start, hits it, just like the Millennium Falcon. Can't get it to start, hit it.
Hit it and it starts.
Yeah. Okay.
Now we get into part 2.
Back to the Future Part 2.
Yeah.
Sorry, my hands were in my face. I can't. All right.
This film.
I'm going to say this. This film started out with great promise.
Yes, it did. But the problem it ran into was they weren't planning a sequel. The way that movie ended. It was rushed writing. With the way that movie, the first one ended, that wasn't supposed to be the beginning of a sequel. They wrote themselves into a corner. And then Zemeckis also said in that interview that with sequels, you want to give people not something too different, yet not something that's not the same enough, and people get mad about that. And that's a very bad way to write a sequel. It is to go with fan expectations, Star Wars fans.
Well, he even said, he's like, if we knew we were going to make a sequel, there's no way in hell we would have put Jennifer in that car.
Exactly, and dude, I was going to bring that up because There's dialogue that Marty says when he asks Doc, "Why did you bring Jennifer?" Because I'm wondering the same freaking thing.
Yeah, and what is the first thing they do when they get to 2015? They dump her.
They knock her out and they dump her. When he erases her memory, why did you do that in the driveway? She didn't have to be there at all.
She did not. No.
So, oh my God, this movie is just
but like I said, It started out well, and here's where my problem with the movie is. I love the first 30 minutes of this movie because I wanted to see what 2015 they were going to give us. The future part
was very fun. It's when they start to retread the first movie that I completely lose interest in this film.
Exactly. If Back to the Future Part 2 is on and it's just starting, I will watch it right up until they go back to 1955. Because I like seeing 2015 Hill Valley. I love it. It's colorful, it's futuristic, it's awesome, and you get to see inside Marty's house, and there's a certain point in his life where things went off the rails, and maybe they'll dive into that, and Marty will get some kind of insight as to what went wrong.
Yeah, imagine if they learned that it was okay to interact with their future selves, and they learn about each other.
But then there's that whole paradox bullcrap that's another thing. Is like there's one of two things that's going to happen if you run into your future self. One, the universe is just going to explode, or nothing. So, which is it? It's apparently nothing because Jennifer ran into her future self and nothing happened. So let's maybe get some insight or sneak around like Marty was doing in 1955, sneak around events and maybe see why your life is so god-awful.
Yeah, absolutely. And then change that about yourself.
Yeah, or...
because in order to make the whole trope work where he gets fired because he's doing something stupid, the guy calls him a chicken, that was never, ever, ever a character trait in the first movie. Ever.
No.
It was brought up in the second one out of BF nowhere. And I'm sorry, but I don't agree with this motive. It's shoehorned in, it's contrived, and I think it just throws it's out of character, actually.
It absolutely is. What also makes absolutely no sense is you shouldn't, if you're Doc Brown, you have this future knowledge of Marty's kids. Why didn't you just go back 3 days? Old Marty McFly still knows who you are. He even said at the end of the first movie, "Look me up."
Yeah.
Why not go back 3 days and have his father, his real father, not his teenage son father, deal with this? I
think that would have been a better movie.
It would have been a better movie. I don't think it makes any sense whatsoever. Also,
and the sequences are lazy because
they are.
We get into him waking up in the future and his mom. They do the whole mom thing again, where you've been asleep for so many hours.
This is back in.
Oh my God, I'm really here. I was like, come on, we just did this.
Is this back in Biff's 1985?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do it again in the third movie.
And they do it
in
the third movie, and it's not even his mom.
Stop repeating.
But
yeah, we'll talk about that.
And we get the skateboard scene again. It's the same scene.
Yeah, and the first one was such a classic because how well it was shot, the music that was behind it, the outsider being in a new time and trying to figure out his way through the town while avoiding these bullies. You gave us the same thing. You don't.
And it lost all its weight.
Absolutely, it did. The only cool thing that it did was make people want hoverboards and start complaining about the fact that we don't have them. Guess what, people? We're not getting them. Get over it. But
I also question Biff. Would that character really have become that?
See, I understand, and I know exactly where you're going with this because the Biff that we saw in 2015, that was the 1985 where he's like a car detailman or something, and he's spineless and whatever. But he goes back to
he was a bully that got stood up to, and then after that he became that.
So, but what they gave us was 2015 Biff, that was basically 1955 Biff that didn't have that. He just went back to being a bully again.
No, that's the thing. It still happened.
It did
George
still happen.
Still knocked him out,
and he just went back to being
anything. Just because he got a sports almanac.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, yeah, okay. So you're telling me that Biff gets all this money. Yeah, he's a bully, but when did he evolve into cold-blooded murder?
Yeah, I know.
That makes no sense.
The whole thing about him wanting to marry Lorraine and whatever, that was never his motivation. He was just a creep.
Yeah.
All he wanted to do was sleep with her, no matter if she said no or not.
But in the second one, you get Biff in 1955 chasing Lorraine like, it's me and you, Lorraine, we're meant to be. Since when?
Yeah.
When did that start?
All you've ever shown is that you've wanted a boner. That's it.
That's all. Ugh.
That's them trying to shoehorn in the first movie. I don't agree with adding it. Going to the whole third part of this movie is so boring to me.
It is so boring because I've already seen this. You're just showing us exactly what we saw, just from a different angle.
Yeah.
Which I don't need. I saw the first one. I loved it.
I don't need this.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, it's Back to the Future. Two was one of the ones I watched the most when I was a kid because it was so bright and colorful, and it was, But I don't know. I don't think it ages very well.
It really doesn't, especially because, younger people are starting to appreciate Back to the Future more and more, and I feel like they're starting to see as they get older just that Back to the Future 2 is not good at it. Like, I'm with you. Back to the Future 2, I watched a lot when I was younger. I
did.
I was like 15, 16. I watched it a lot. But as I got older, I'm like, this movie is not as good as I remember.
No, and it really, especially when I watched them back to back, the flaws and the recycled stuff that they used, it became so much more apparent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Watching that movie felt like I just had to get through it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, if I have the option, like if I went out and bought the trilogy, I would probably just skip it.
Yeah,
I'd watch Back to the Future 1 and 3. I have no desire.
I've got my own issues with 3.
Well, let's go then.
3, I think, is, while not a bad movie, it's just not exciting.
To me, Back to the Future Part 3 is what Back to the Future 1 is, what a sequel should be for that franchise, because you have a time machine. You can tell us
anywhere.
You can tell us any story you want. And the fact they went to the Old West, I appreciate that they actually did that instead of staying where they went in the second movie and just going right back to 55.
No, I appreciate that they made it a Western. I love Westerns.
Absolutely. But it's a sci-fi Western, which makes it doubly cool.
Yeah. It's just that the execution of the screenplay, it doesn't feel like any of the other movies at all. And that's what you want to maintain with a trilogy, is the feel of the thing.
Right, and I kind of agree with you because the Western Marty, this is not Back to the Future 1 Marty. Like, I know he's been.
No, it's still Back to the Future 2 Marty.
But he's been on it. He's been on 2 adventures now, but he's not like freaking out like he did in 1 or even at the beginning of 2.
Yeah,
he's just like, okay, we're in the West now, right on. Like, there's no sense of wonder or maybe he doesn't feel like he's in any danger, except maybe when Mad Dog is shooting at him. But that's it.
And
everything else he just takes in stride.
Goes to the moonwalking.
Yeah, everything else he just takes in stride. Like, no, you're 100 years out of place. Act like it.
Yeah, which goes to, he reacted well in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
The reactions in the third one are just not up to par with it.
Absolutely not. And I understand that Doc has been there a good amount of time before him, but I don't know. Like, Doc Brown in the West didn't really sell me 100%, but I still enjoyed, like, when he had that giant refrigerator, I enjoyed seeing a 20th century scientist back in the Old West. That was fun. But my biggest problem is, so you take the 1955 DeLorean or 1985 DeLorean back to the Old West after Doc Brown fixes it in 55, and you run out of gas or the fuel line rips. There is a second DeLorean in 1885, and it's the one that Doc hid for Marty to find. Where's the gas in that one? Did you take it out?
Why didn't they go get that one? That's right.
And he blew the fuel injector manifold. Why didn't you just go get that one and have Doc Brown in 55 replace it? So
I don't know.
Yeah, there's a whole
time travel, and now my eyes are crossed.
Yeah, like that. It hurts to ask questions to a movie that's like 25, 30 years old.
And I also want people to understand, too, that we are not hating on either sequel. They have a special place in both of our hearts.
No, it's one of the greatest trilogies in cinema. Don't get us twisted. We just have issues.
Certain elements of these films just don't live. They don't age well. You go back and you look at it again, and you notice things that are there's things that are dated, and there's things that are products of their time,
and things that your opinions change based on your age. Like, you loved something, and then you got older. Like, wow, that's not as cool as I remember. Like, I was a wide-eyed teenager when I saw Back to the Future 2 1,000 times, but now I see it like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because I don't remember being bored when I was a kid watching the third one. As an adult, I was, and there are definitely
a few parts where it does drag. Like, when Doc is just sitting. Whenever Doc is hanging out with, what is her name, Clara, yeah, Mary Steenburgen, that's her name.
Yeah.
When he's hanging out with Clara, it's just I know it's serving a purpose of telling you that Doc is falling in love, but it bores me to tears.
It does,
because they're just sitting there with a telescope talking about Jules Verne. Like, this sucks.
Can we continue with the movie, please?
Yeah, can we get back to Marty and Doc, because that's really the only time that this movie shines, is when they're together.
Yeah, that's the heart of the film.
Yeah, it's those two. I don't really know where else to go with Back to the Future 3. Like, everything else I love. Like, one of the best parts of this entire trilogy is the train sequence. The train sequence is amazing. Yeah, it's great cinematography. You'll never take that away from me. I love it 100%. I never hated the very end of the film where Doc builds a time machine train. I thought that was cool. It was a great way to end it was silly, great way to end the franchise. Like, all right, we're done. It was something that he would do. Absolutely, it was. So I love that. I love the ZZ Top cameo, which is hilarious. That was great. If you don't know, they're the band at the ball or whatever when Clara and Doc are dancing. Yeah, that's ZZ Top. It took me 10 years to know that, because I didn't know that when I was a kid either. I got the box set a long time ago, and they have this wonderful feature where out of nowhere it'll just tell you a fact about the movie or whatever, and it's so informative. It just gives you behind the scenes, but it doesn't stop the movie. It just puts it on screen like a subtitle. If you don't have the trilogy, I would definitely recommend doing that and watching it with them on. It's so much fun. But yeah, Back to the Future 3 and 2, they definitely they're good movies. They're just not great. Yeah, they're just very flawed. Yes. Products of I would say the Hollywood capitalist
agenda. We just got to make more money.
Yeah, and
They pushed it. I mean, not to say that they weren't passionate about what they were doing, and that wonderful, talented people didn't work on these films, because they absolutely did. It's just they
wrote themselves into
fumbled
a
the ball
yeah.
with the one.
They wrote themselves into a corner with one, and maybe one day I'll grow to appreciate Back to the Future 2, but it ain't gonna be anytime soon. I'll tell you that right now.
Not like I used to.
No.
I really appreciate. No one can ever take away this franchise's impact on film.
Not to mention, I love that not once that I can remember in the last 15 years has anybody ever even suggested that they do another one.
No, the other one was the game that they made. Remember the Telltale game?
I do remember the Telltale game. I didn't play it.
That was supposed to be the sequel, and that was all they were ever going to do.
Which is fine, because I know that, Michael J. Fox cannot do it.
No, he can't.
Christopher Lloyd probably can't do it. Don't reboot it. It will never work. Everyone on the planet's going to scream foul, and I love that not in the last 15. He might have been able to do it 15 years ago. Maybe he still had Parkinson's, but he might have been able to do it.
Today he can't.
I've
seen him in recent interviews. It's hard to watch.
It's heartbreaking. It really is. But I just love that they knew that it was over, and they're like, we're just going to leave it here in its place in history. And we're not gonna Matrix this thing and make a fourth one.
Exactly.
Looking at you, Lana.
Right at you.
Yeah. If you didn't catch our nerd news, yeah, they're making a Matrix 4.
Go listen to that if you want to hear our opinion.
Yeah. Was it an opinion or was it an ass reaming? I don't know.
I get stern talking too.
Fair enough. So we actually don't know which films we're going to be discussing in the next one, but you can actually help us with that if you head over to our Facebook page, which is Facebook at Podcast Press Play. We have a poll up right now, and it ends in 6 days?
It ends. It ends the Monday before we record. So.
Okay, so you have a choice with what we talk about. We can talk about the Indiana Jones or the Star Wars prequels. Now, I have a question. If we're talking about Indiana Jones, are we going to talk about all four? Because that could be a good 45-minute podcast, which I'm fine with.
I think
so could the prequels.
I don't think that we can leave out
the Crystal Skull.
The Crystal Skull, because it's such a the first was such a benchmark, and the way to we'll get into that.
Okay, so there's your two choices. Go vote, and we will see you guys next Wednesday. This has been the Press Play Podcast. I'm Ian.